Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Worst, a podcast where we watch movie trilogies and decide which film we are pretty sure is a war criminal now. Joining me today...
I'm Peter Parker number 3, and you guys might not know how to work as a team. Well, I do. I've been in a team, okay? I don't want to brag, but I will. I was in the Avengers.
And I'm Luke Morgan, and I can help. You know, I'm something of a podcaster myself.
Boys, the closing film in the Tom Holland Spiderman Trilogy just came out. We've all seen it. We're here to talk about it and the rest of the Tom Holland trilogy. Is there a better name for this trilogy? Is it the Home Trilogy? The MCU Trilogy?
I mean, they've definitely gone the home theme for all of the movies.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll keep that home thing going forward in any more Spider-Man movies. I think this was its own trilogy. So, yeah, the Home Trilogy.
I hope so. I think the names are pretty crap out of all these films, to be honest.
Well, I like how they do it.
I'm not a fan of it, but
I liked it in Homecoming because it had several meanings. It worked pretty
meta.
well as Spider-Man coming home to the MCU.
Yeah.
Then maybe they took it too far. I don't know. I'm kind of a fan too, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do we want some stats? Are we ready for some stats?
Stats.
Can I ask real quick? I just want to give my impression.
Ooh.
This film exceeded my expectations.
Hey, we're going to get to it, okay? No, we're not only here to talk about number 3. There's a whole
We are.
trilogy to talk about.
We're only here to talk about No Way Home.
We will be talking about number 3 in depth, but we have to get the first 2 out of the way first.
So, spoilers for all of them. Number 3 is very new. Normally, our films are quite old. We're outside of the spoiler threshold. Not in this case. Stats.
So we are spoiling it?
Yeah.
We are
for sure.
Spoiling the
How
hell
do you
out
talk
of
about this movie without spoiling it?
Yeah.
I was just going to say how much I liked certain elements. Anyway,
No.
Stats me.
All right, box office. Spider-Man: Homecoming. Let's go North American, just because I only have the North American stats for No Way Home because it's so new. So in North America, $334 million at the box office, $175 million budget. Far From Home, $390 million box office, $160 million budget, so a smaller budget than the first film. And then so far for Spider-Man No Way Home, I didn't check the budget, but it's made $121 million on Friday alone. I believe that's the second highest Friday box office ever, and it's definitely the highest box office since the old COVID-19 has been rampaging through those box office stats.
Yes.
So doing extremely well. I know from personal experience in our small town, the cinema was packed out. People getting turned away.
Yeah. It was quite sad.
Jeez, has that ever happened before? Wow.
Yes, it happened to me at Avengers, actually. Was the other film that happened. Critical score. So Spider-Man Homecoming, 73 on Metacritic. Far From Home, 69. And No Way Home, 72. There's not much in it. There's really not much in it. If we want to look, I'll read the Rotten Tomatoes for Luke's sake.
Thank you.
92% for Homecoming, 90% for Far From Home, 94% for No Way Home.
There we go. I like them more.
No, I disagree with those dramatically.
They're pretty much, well, not quite the same as the Metacritic ones.
No.
Boys, how did you guys enjoy the trilogy as a whole?
Conan, I'll let you go first.
I didn't really enjoy it as the trilogy as a whole, to be honest, on this rewatch. I do not know where to start this. I like, stop looking at me with those dead eyes, okay?
You have no soul.
I think this trilogy is lacking a lot. I don't know, and maybe part of it is just my jaded cynicism towards the MCU as a whole. But I think what these films do is they serve an interesting place in the broader MCU timeline, and what they sort of, in their context, they're really interesting. But doing them as a rewatch, I really didn't care. Homecoming I enjoyed. Far From Home, I don't care for at all in the slightest. And I really just I don't care that much until No Way. Tom Holland's whole story and arc and embodiment really was lacking, I think. I just don't think his journey was that interesting.
I think I disagree. I really enjoy Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I think his appearance in the Avengers films and in Civil War were really, really good. I think he's definitely a standout character in those movies when he shows
No,
up.
I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah, I like Homecoming. I'm not as big a fan as Far From Home. I'm a bit like you. I think it's definitely the weakest of the three, but we'll get into it. Um, I'm going to miss Tom Holland if this is his last lot. It's still up in the air, I believe, whether he's going to continue on or not. There seems every other day there's a report of him saying he's going to retire and cut wood in the
Yes.
forest, and then and then other people saying he's going to continue on. But Luke, you are our resident Marvel fanboy. Everything Marvel gets devoured by you. Go ahead, tell us how good these films are.
I love these films. So
What a
no,
surprise!
I'm baffled that
Baffled. Okay.
So okay, I love these films. I loved when he first showed up in Civil War. I love Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Uh, Obviously, they took him in a different direction than what we've seen from Peter Parker before. Like, there's a lot of people that sort of, criticize or whatever, comparing him to like an Iron Man Junior, with like the tech side of things and the AI in his armor and all this sort of stuff, which is fair. But Iron Man obviously didn't play a part in any of the other Spider-Man movies before, like the MCU Spider-Man, and I think it's needed for this. And we'll get into it more when we discuss No Way Home. But I really like where Tom Holland's Spider-Man is sitting now for the future, and I'm really interested. I guarantee he does more. Like obviously, yeah, he says every day that he's retiring or he's leaving this, or if I'm doing Spider-Man 6 years from now, then I've failed as an actor.
Yeah, I've done
But then he
something
goes
wrong.
back and retracts that, and then there's rumors that he signed on for another trilogy. So,
Yeah.
and I believe that one. Like, I believe we'll get another trilogy of Spider-Man films. And I'm hyped for that. But these
It's been
films, like, I love them. I love these films. Some of them aren't like as they don't reach the heights as the others, but yeah, they're still really good, solid Spider-Man films, and better than 75% of other Spider films that we've had to this time. So,
well, not that number quite lines up.
mm,
I think you're right though. We will see more of this. Like I think it was Amy Pascal, the Sony exec, sort of said they want to keep doing this. Like Spider-Man, I think is their like main moneymaker at the moment, right?
yeah,
This is what
Yeah.
Sony has that's bringing in dollars. They'd be stupid to not keep it going. And for better or for worse, I would probably say worse. Most people would say for better. By keeping it separate from Marvel, would probably not do the same. We just wouldn't make the same money. So they need to
No.
keep doing Marvel Spider-Man because that's going to make them millions of dollars. So I don't
dude,
see it slowing down anytime soon.
Sony make millions and millions and millions of dollars just from like this Spider-Man existing and them doing a Venom. Like Venom did so well because Spider-Man is so popular from the MCU at the moment in like
Exactly.
today's youth, Like
Yeah.
Venom wouldn't have done that good after Andrew Garfield's one. Like
Yeah.
without the
Yeah.
Spider-Man involvement or whatever.
I mean,
with
and then
Spider-Man.
they've got Morbius coming up. Isn't there a
Yep.
Craven the Hunter movie? Like, there's all
Yeah.
these,
Yeah.
his rogues galleries all getting their own films, which is really bizarre to me. But I guess that's Hollywood. That's money.
Yep. People are paying. People are going to see it all.
Yeah.
Before we get into the trilogy, Dennis Franz, where do we put him in these films?
Uncle Ben.
But Uncle
Bring
Ben
in
does
Uncle
not
Ben!
appear
Where
in
is
these
Uncle
films.
Ben?
He is if he's Dennis Franz. Easy. He turns up and he's like, "What's up, Marissa Tomei? I'm your lost."
Yeah, no. So Marissa Tomei sort of cancels out Dennis Franz. You can't have him as Uncle Ben with her.
I mean, that it could have been like a brother thing, like he is their brother and sister,
Mm.
and aunt and uncle. Could have been that sort of relationship. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't know.
He
Replace
could
John
be one of
Favreau.
he could be one of the school teachers. The school teacher that takes him around. He's in literally every movie. Guy, I don't know. I can't remember what the actor's name is, but
Martin
he's in.
Starr. No way.
He's
He's
so good, though.
hilarious.
He is really good.
Yeah.
He's in Silicon Valley, but
Have him as the other teacher that's in Far From Home.
Oh yeah, the guy he's with. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was nearly going to
That's
say
a
the
good
gym teacher, but man, I love the gym teacher. He's
Hannibal Buress is too good.
yeah,
as the
Hannibal
gym
Buress is
teacher.
too good.
Especially in the third one as well. He just his couple of lines he has, like cracks me
He's
up.
barely in there, but you all knew his character as soon as he started talking to like
Yep.
conspiracy theorist nut job.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, should we kick it off? Let's get into the trilogy. Spider-Man, Homecoming. Hmm. Luke, you love this film, right?
Yes. Yes.
Tell us why.
Oh, are
I
you
was,
going to give a
I was
synopsis?
expecting a
Or?
synopsis.
Oh yeah, we
I was
do a
waiting for a
synopsis now, don't we?
synopsis.
I'll be
It's a
honest.
new format.
We had some technical difficulties, and I'm not as prepared as I would like to be.
Do your synopsis, and then I'll get into Homecoming.
I'm finding a synopsis.
When Peter Parker gets bitten by a radioactive spider.
I mean, it's pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
These films are
Give us one. Go on. Off the cuff.
in the wake of Avengers.
Yes. Thrilled by his experience with the Avengers, young Peter Parker returns home to live with his Aunt May under the watchful eye of mentor Tony Stark. Parker starts to embrace his newfound identity as Spider-Man. He also tries to return to his normal daily routine, distracted by thoughts of proving himself to be more than just a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Peter must soon put his powers to the test when the evil Vulture emerges to threaten everything that he holds dear.
I was going to say that.
Yeah. You started off. You started it off word for word, and I just continued it.
I texted it too. Cool.
What a film. I really love Homecoming. Like, I think it's one of the stronger MCU films. Michael Keaton as Vulture is amazing. I love what they do with Vulture on every level. Like the fact that they took Vulture, this old like Birdman from the comics, and made it make sense in a grounded reality. Even to the point that the suit makes sense. It looks kind of like a vulture. He has his jacket because it's like the cold up in the sky, and he's got the little feathers there to pick up
Pilot
junk. Like
jacket,
he's got
yeah.
little claws on his feet. The fact that like his profession is like picking up scraps from these people higher above, like he's a junker and he's doing this stuff. It's great on so many levels, and his performance as this, I think he's one of the better MCU villains out there. I think I had him as like my top villain before Thanos came around in Infinity War. Every scene with him is like a scene stealer, I think, and yeah, I love this film so much.
He's like the perfect size villain for Peter Parker to deal with on his own.
Yeah.
Like he's not world ending yet. He could get there maybe. Like you could see him becoming a big threat, but where he exists within the MCU universe, like he's a small time player. Like he's doing bad things, but he's it's not world ending. It's not universe ending. He's not from outer space. It's just a dude trying to make a living. He keeps reminding you that he's got a daughter and a wife to look after. He's got a family.
Oh, and doesn't that come back to play a part? I love that reveal. It's so good.
That reveal totally got me in the cinema. Watching it this time, like I realized just how often he talks about having a wife and kid, like a wife and daughter. He just repeats it a lot. It's kind of like, oh, I see. I missed these cues before.
But still, like I remember going to the cinema to watch this, and everyone in the audience, when he opens the door, just everyone was like, oh god, what?
It's just so clever because obviously everyone just makes the racial assumption, right? It's just like,
yep.
And it's like, and you don't even. There's nothing malicious to it. It's just a clever sort of commentary on filmmaking and how you need to visually tell a story of like this white family here and this is their thing, and it's just like, no, this can happen. Remember, guys? And it's like, oh wow, we totally got played.
Yeah. Like it's funny. The opening scene of this film, which I love as well, is like showing the ground level of the results from the Avengers battle in 2012.
The cleanup, yeah.
They're trying to clean up. Shield come in, kick them out, and everything. But like the first scene, he's looking at a drawing that his daughter did, and he mentions his daughter straight away. He's like, "Yeah, no, she drew this," But yeah, like I love how they showed that sort of thing from the ground level, like just people dealing with the destruction of all these superheroes and stuff like that. I like when they go to that small level sort of thing.
All right, let's deal with I think what is the biggest problem of this film in my rewatch. Is Vulture a bad guy?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean he
tries to kill a 15-year-old.
After this 15-year-old tries to stop him, right?
He's selling weapons.
So
Tony Stark is also doing, sure.
So so he is doing exactly the same thing as what Stark is doing. And I think I really didn't notice it as much, but the more I looked into it and read about it, I'm like, he is literally a guy who is screwed over. Like he's the ultimate downtrodden person. He's the victim of the American system because he overextends himself. Shield, this pompous group of douchebags come in, knock him off, give him no recompense, so he is literally left in ruin.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I'm not just gonna like this is a huge injustice." And there's been no sort of sense of justice to my cause. And so he says, "Well, I'm gonna do the only thing I can do now is scavenge and continue to steal from these uber wealthy people who are also selling weapons." He's not a villain. He's really not a bad guy. It's only when Peter comes in and tries to mess with it, and
He
then he's
does.
like, "Well, yeah, I'm
He
going to do this because
he
you've given
does.
me
He
nothing.
does.
You've left me no end."
He does vaporize a guy earlier in the movie.
He doesn't mean to, though.
Yeah,
She thinks it's the anti-grav gun.
I'm not
But he
convinced
doesn't
he wasn't.
care.
He did not intend to kill him though.
No,
I think
but
he, I think he did. I think he intended to hurt him or to scare him.
I just love picturing the anti-grav guns just as something that makes the dude float in the air, and he's like, "What are you gonna do? Are you gonna dob on
Yeah,
me? Please don't." And
exactly.
he's like, "Oh man, put me down." No, but I love that scene when he disintegrates him. He's just like, I thought this was the anti-grav gun. And he's like, "No, that's that one."
It's
Like,
pretty funny.
I think he's definitely a villain you can empathize with, and like he's not the baddest guy in the world. Like I said, like he's kind of small time, but he is. You
Mm.
can't say he's not doing bad things. He does kill a guy. Like they are selling weapons. I know Tony Stark is also doing that, but that is kind of one of his arcs too, of not trying to
And we
get out of
love
that
him.
business, right? Like,
Mm.
um, yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
I'm
he's not a
you
bad,
go.
like, even in the post-credit scene with Scorpion, like, he doesn't rat Peter out. Whether
Yeah.
or not
No,
that's just because 'cause I'm gonna kill him when I get out, or just, like, "No, I don't want these people going after this kid," or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, he's a good-hearted kid, but,
yeah,
like, he gives Peter a chance. Like, he says, like, "Just have a good night with my daughter. Stop messing with my business," you know?
Mm.
Um, but, yeah, he's not like, out of a lot of the villains, he's not really a bad dude.
I
Too
think
bad.
it's a similar thing with what we had when we talked about Falcon and Winter Soldier. They're hinting at this world, and they're hinting at the idea of what happens to people at the ground level, what's going on in the real world, and then they very quickly just go, but what's more interesting is superhero battles and a very
yeah,
black and white view of the world. And it just kind of irks me a bit more on this rewatch. I don't want to be too negative because this film is really fun. Like it's very entertaining. It comes at a great time where it's a sort of after the heaviness of Civil War,
yeah,
and it's just kind of this is a nice palate cleanse. It's cool to just have fun with the MCU instead of like deal with this
Yeah.
weighty stuff.
Yeah.
But what it's trying to say is like Peter's whole arc in this is I want to be an Avenger. Oh, it's so hard not being an Avenger. I'm going to stop this guy who's been a victim of the Avengers, and I'm the hero for it. I'm like, its central thesis is actually pretty screwy, which I don't know, not great.
yeah.
Conan's a Vulture fan.
He's
Everyone's on the Mysterio boat, but
like
Conan's like, Vulture was right.
it's the same as how people are like, Killmonger is actually not the villain of Black Panther. It's kind of true. He's got a very clear point. Vulture's even like less ready to just murder people and take stuff back. He's like, no, I'm surviving here. I'm playing the game by the rules you set, and this is how I survive. And Peters just wants to muck it up.
Yeah, no, like he's definitely very sympathetic. I totally agree. How did you guys feel about Papa Tony? Tony getting in there and giving fatherly advice?
So it's like that's the thing. Like, you look at the poster of these films, like it's Iron Man and Spider-Man, like on the posters, like they're
Yeah,
promoting the hell out of Iron Man. There's a few weird scenes, like the whole scene where he's not in the suit, um, and he's actually in India or somewhere, like
yeah,
at a party.
yeah,
It feels weird. Like, I don't know, like it feels really like they're just filming Robert Downey Jr. where he's on location somewhere else. Like, oh, I can't be on set for this Spider-Man film, but I'll do this.
it does.
Which,
It does feel that way, but they do bring it back later on when he's like, "You're not even here," and he's actually there. Like they do.
yeah, no,
Whether it is because
I
they
get
get
it.
conflicted or not, it does work.
Yeah, no, I get it. And it has that thing of he just wants to impress Tony. He wants to, like, he looks up to him. He's obviously lost the father figures in his life, and Tony's that for him now.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, like what you were saying earlier, Conan, about like the palate cleanser and lighthearted. I love like they open it with the home video of like him filming him, and he's like, "Oh my god!" And then like, you see the Civil War battle again of Ant Man growing big in the
yeah.
background, and he's just like, "Oh man, I popped up and Captain America's there." I was like, "Hey guys," and this it's just like him and Happy's dynamic is hilarious.
Yeah, it's fun.
I
I
really,
do love I just wanna say, like, with the Tony Stark like dad situation. I do like that, Tony shows he is keeping up. Like he's like, "Oh, I thought you like quit band like 6 weeks ago," or like, he's like keeping up with what Happy's telling him. Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, the lady with the churro the other day." Like he's keeping tabs on him. He cares about Peter, and I do like that you see that. But
Yeah.
It's
Kind of,
a nice surrogate for the absence of Uncle Ben, right?
yeah. We even get the Uncle Ben death, right? Like between this and the second movie, like it works well as a surrogate for that for sure.
Mm.
Um, I really appreciated that these films are like actually a high school Spider-Man. Like I know we kind of joked about the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy being the oldest high schoolers around.
Yes.
It's
Bunch of
it's
30-year-olds.
an old era where they had 30-year-olds pretending to be teenagers, but like I feel like Tom Holland is a teenager in these
Yeah.
movies, and I feel like they do teenager things. I really enjoy them, like cutting to the home movies, like you talked about, or like the school intercom system, stuff like that.
The
Yep.
school news is great. How they're just
Yeah,
so bad. They're so bad at everything.
yeah,
The edits and stuff they do are really
it's
funny.
really funny. And yeah, I just enjoy like the banter at school. Like I enjoy Ned. I think he's a great character. Um,
Yep.
dropping that Star Destroyer was kind of heartbreaking, but
Yep. No, like, that's the thing, like, they're going to parties,
yeah,
like, they're doing stuff, like, to try and use Spider-Man, like, to impress, girls and, like, oh my god, like, it's I love it. I love, Guilfoyle from Silicon Valley, Martin Starr as the
yeah,
teacher. I think he's hilarious. Um, yeah, I love the school aspect of it. We haven't had that before. I feel like we've had attempts at it, but this one, yeah, definitely feels like high school, and it feels like the
yeah,
kids are all aged appropriately. Um, and yeah, especially like the whole homecoming prom thing is
yeah.
like a nice touch as well.
Yeah. How did you guys feel about Flash?
I love Flash. Like
Of
it's
course you
such a
do. I
different no, it's such a different take on Flash that, he's a nerd as well. He's in like the decathlon team with him. Peter's better at him than stuff, so he's like getting kicked out when Peter's like, "No, I'll jump back on the team." Like, "Okay, Flash, you're out." And he's like, "Oh, what?"
That's the
Um,
best lie. He's
Yeah.
like, he can't come back in here. Flash, you're out.
I love the dynamic between that he's like hates on Peter Parker, but you can tell he kind of like, yeah. We get into it more in the later ones as well, but I really enjoy Flash in these films. Um, yeah.
I mean, it's a very different Flash to the one we get in the Raimi trilogy. That was like again an old era bully, right? Like he just wants to beat Peter up, wants to take his lunch money. This
I don't
is
think we
this is the new era. He's sticking his finger up at him behind the teacher's back. He's probably sending him mean texts. Like I don't know. I enjoy Flash. I think he's pretty good for the most part.
When I
that's the
say
thing.
penis, you say Parker, penis.
We went from a guy who was literally going to commit murder in high
Yeah.
school to this guy who does that, who makes penis jokes about a guy's name at a party. Like it's
Picture this Flash
Which
being like,
one's
"I
more
wouldn't want to fight me
realistic?
neither."
but I just think their relationship is not that of a bully. It's weird because Peter's just like, yeah, okay. Like
But do we need
Flash
that?
is but it Flash is so much like he's depicted as like the bully and this guy who like ridicules, but he has zero severity or any risk. There's no threat to him. It's weird. Even with that thing, it's like, oh, when he's like, oh, we're still uncool. It's like that's so lame. He could have at least done something better than just say penis Parker, ha ha ha. It's like
It's 15-year-olds,
it's
man.
the safe. I'm sorry. We all went to school. We all hung out with 15-year-olds. We were doing worse stuff than going penis Parker, ha ha. Like this is the
Yeah, but we weren't
safest.
committing. Well, not many people were like committing murder in the hallways, wanting to punch people's heads
All
in.
right, okay. That's what I'm saying. We can find a nice
middle
leeway, like
middle
midway
ground, you reckon?
between that, where he's not quite going to kill a man over some spilt lunch, but he's also going to do more than just make penis
But
puns. It's
but it's also like, okay, but then what? But like, what's the point? Because once we've already come to this movie, he's already fought people like Captain America. Like, it's not like he's getting
he
bullied
does.
before he has powers. He has powers to start this film. So, like, what can a bully do that's not
He doesn't need to do anything
intimidating?
physical. I'm not expecting him to be physical with him. I'm okay with him being scrawny, and that's a bit more realistic. Of like he's this other nerd who's just. But something that's a bit more weighty, like whether he is really actually ruining his chances at school or he's actually doing stuff. Like even in Far From Home, you get more from Brad, where he's like trying to come in and steal MJ, I was like, that actually feels a bit more real because it's like, oh, this could actually sort of hurt Peter. Whereas nothing Flash does in these has any effect on Peter. He's just like, I'm still smarter than you. I'm still cooler than you. Like, there's,
But
uh,
I like that dynamic. It's not like I've watched these films and I'm like, oh, I'm really lacking that Flash dynamic of him being bullied by this kid at
Yeah,
school.
I don't.
Like, it's a fun relationship. I feel like,
He's the
and
butt of a
yeah,
bunch of jokes. That's really all he's there for. Like, he's not. I don't know. He's not a central
no.
conflict in these movies.
this is the MCU
But
Flash. Conan,
this
deal
is
with it.
this is a film literally being like, look at high school, look at all the stuff you go through in high school, and it tries to say there's bullies, but they're not bullies. He's just a guy who's just as nerdy, but he's like, hey, Penis Parker. No one's getting insulted by that. No one.
Oh man, I just love his DJ Flash. And he's the DJ at his own at the party. It's great. He's a big nerd. It's great. And
He's
it's
pretty
hilarious.
lame.
Yep.
Does Captain America have the best cameos in all of the MCU?
Yep. Oh,
when, when the gym teacher's on the wrong side of the screen.
yeah. He's like your gym teacher.
Oh
And
man,
as
I just as the Camp Krusty Mr. Black, so
Yeah.
so good.
and yeah, like you touched on it, I love the whole just pretty sure this guy's a war criminal now, but I have to show these films. Like, it's great.
Yeah.
And then detention. Like it's just I love him. It's great.
Yeah, he's great.
Not a great post-credit scene, but it's funny though. It is a funny.
Yeah, it's funny. It doesn't reveal anything exciting. Doesn't titillate you in preparation for the next film. It just
Yeah. But on the rewatch, that's more enjoyable, right?
You're right, 100%. Yeah, I wonder how No Way Home's finals, right at the end of the credits will stand up. Anyway, we'll get there. Is it time to move on? Have you guys said enough about Homecoming?
Yes.
No. So I don't know. It just I really like this movie. I love the fact that Vulture keeps talking to his team about we don't want the Avengers' attention. We're just a bunch of guys. If the Avengers show up, we're toast. Like we can't compete with them. I love the little clips that we get of Peter Parker doing just he's running around the city helping people, webbing people, stopping them, stealing cars, and then that's actually a person's
It's his
car. Or the
car.
guy's just like, do a flip. Just does a flip. He's like, yeah. Him stopping the ATM robbery is funny. How he's like trying to prepare how to interrupt, where he's like finding his stance. And we didn't talk about Donald Glover. I love the whole scene, the weapons dealership, but when he confronts him later and he has the really deep voice.
Yeah. Intimidation mode.
Intimidation mode. He's like, dude, I know what a girl sounds like. I heard you at the thing. He's like, I'm not a girl. I'm a boy. I'm a man. And obviously there's the little Miles Easter egg in that when he mentions his nephew.
Yeah.
What's your guys' opinion on Karen, the AI? In the suit.
She's a lot of fun.
She's fun.
Jennifer Connelly.
Oh, is it?
Is it really?
Yes.
Oh.
Yep.
I like their. Oh, you go.
I was going to say AI in movies is always dumb. They're always just too smart. Like they're just it's just a person. There's someone they're paying 2 cents an hour in India to do that. That's how that happens in real life.
That's a good story in itself. A good film about the AI like that. No, I think it's really fun. I like that montage where he's like talking about his feelings. She's bonding, and it's like been 20 minutes. That's
yeah.
I think Peter has ADD, but that's another other topic.
Also, we need to talk about I love the scene in the car with Michael Keaton. When he's having that chat and he figures out that he's Spider-Man. Like there's the scene when they stop at the traffic light and the color changes on his face, and just Michael Keaton is great in that car scene. Is intense. I love that scene so much.
Yeah, that's the standout moment. That whole building tension. And again, it's that great callback to the scene from Spider-Man 1 where Willem Dafoe, Green Goblin, finds out that Peter's Spider-Man. So that's a nice riff.
Yeah.
So I've got a list of stuff I just want to cover before we move on. I love Ned as the guy, like the computer guy, and he's just in this school library, and he's just rolling between the dodgy computers, looking up stuff, just stuff like how to turn the lights on in the car that he's driving because they have no idea how to operate vehicles and stuff like that. So he's just like, "What model car is it? Okay, doing this." I love the scene when he gets crushed by the rubble. I find that really heartbreaking. Like he seems like a kid that's like scared when he's crushed, and he's like, "No, I'm Spider-Man. I'm Spider-Man." He like the whole speech from Tony about the mask and everything like that.
Yeah.
Oh, the suit. It's touching. I really like it.
How do you guys feel
And
about the suits? Because it's kind of a recurring theme in these movies that he has a really powerful suit and then he has to lose it before the boss fight at the end. You know, they have to take his power level down a little bit to make it a fair fight. It does
I don't,
bother me that it has to happen every time.
it's a cheap way of telling the story of he has to realize he's the true hero.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying this to crap all over it, but it is very tight of like I'm more than just the weapon I have or the suit. It's like
Yeah.
it
So-
it really frustrates me. It's there's a good emotional payoff there you could build to, but it's just much easier to go the suit.
So the thing with this, and I only found this out recently. It makes a lot more sense. I feel like it works in the first one with that whole story that Tony takes the suit away from him, and he
Yep.
finds that. That makes sense. But what I found out is that apparently it's this whole deal with Sony because Sony obviously have to work out this deal with Marvel to have Spider-Man in the MCU. Sony has like merchandising rights. And so apparently it's like a contract thing that he has to have a certain amount of suits in each movie for action figures and stuff. So that's why literally is like the Night Monkey in Far From Home, he's got black instead of blue on his suit. In this one, it's got this suit and the homemade suit. And
I
then
just
even
feel
in the fourth
dirty
one,
now.
there's
Yeah,
the
I
suit
hate that.
inside out, that's black and gold, and it's just the suit inside out, and like it's because it's the whole Sony part of the contract.
It sells to it. I knew Sony was evil. I always hated them, and this is just another reason to.
But it does. I
Oh.
mean, it is used to bring his power level down. Like that, the suits
Yeah.
he gets from Tony are way more powerful than the dude in his pajamas. You know.
Yeah. So as long as they make it make sense, I'm good with. Just a couple of things we touched on earlier, the Vulture and like his suit and everything. But I really like at the end when they're fighting on the jet, and it's like a vulture attacking him when he lets go of the jet and like flies down, like he's just like constantly like attacking him with like the claws.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just think it's a really funny scene with Happy in the school bathroom at the end when he's there to meet him in the bathroom,
That
and the kid just
looks at him.
watches him all confused, looks out, and he's like, "How long have you been here?" He's like, "Long enough to be awkward." Like, let's get out of here. And we
But
get
not-
the MJ reveal as well.
Yeah. The nicest touch is how Michael Keaton's jacket has the frill, and that's
I
his
love it.
It's
that's his
good, eh?
vulture thing. Like it's great. It's very
Yeah.
like reminiscent of like the Nolan Batmans where they ground all the villains.
Yeah.
And, like this is like, I'm
Totally.
like it's a great way to proceed with it.
All right.
Keep it moving.
Spider-Man: Far From Home. Peter Parker's relaxing European vacation takes an unexpected turn when Nick Fury shows up in his hotel room to recruit him for a mission. The world is in danger as four massive elemental creatures, each representing earth, air, water, and fire, emerge from a hole torn in the universe. Peter Parker soon finds himself donning the Spider-Man suit to help Fury and fellow superhero Mysterio stop the evil entities from wreaking havoc across the continent.
So, just the opening of this, I love the "My Heart Will Go On"
Yes.
intro,
Yes.
and no matter how many times I watch it, pixelated vision cracks me up every time. How pixelated the
And
tribute
it's like
picture.
Comic Sans font, like it's perfect. It's really well done.
It reminds me of videos I made when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Like it just the ones what you would get if these superheroes existed in the world of like if you Googled them, like
Yeah.
you got Tony Stark with the explosions in the background, and it's just that the school intro is perfect. But I love it.
Its films are not that good.
It's not as good,
Right.
you're right. We'll get to it. I do
It's just-
enjoy how they show the effect of the blip. Like, I think that's kind of fun. Like, you get the memoriam video, you get, what's the kid's name? He's been pushed up into their class because he didn't blip out, but everyone else
Brandon?
did.
Brad.
Brad, that's
yeah.
it.
Yep.
And like this, I don't know. There's a story about like the teacher's wife pretended to blip out. And
Oh,
she just left
that's
him.
the
Like,
funny
it's
bit.
so funny, but so sad.
that story's hilarious. Like we had a fake funeral. Well, the funeral was real, but yeah, she just ran off. That teacher's like Martin Starr's hilarious in this. I feel like
He is really good.
the whole the switcheroo on the plane just cracks me up when he's like perfume allergy. He's like, no, that's
That's not a
serious. Like,
joke.
no, you swap with this, you swap with this.
Yeah.
And Ned ends up, like, falling for
For Betty.
Betsy
Him
Brandt,
and
Betty Brandt.
him and Betty have that. That's such a weird.
It is weird.
It's
It's
great,
very
like, but
high school though. Like you're
yeah.
hot as for 4 days and then you break up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Martin Starr's hilarious. That thing cracks me up every time. But I do like that whole thing how they introduced Brad by having him be this like young kid that's now aged up, and
Yep.
this new competition to Peter Parker between him and MJ. With this movie, especially in this, obviously it takes away. What's your feeling? I know, Granny, you've talked about it before, like the nano suits.
Aren't they terrible? Aren't they
Yeah.
bad?
They're just it's just magic at that point. It's so boring.
It's so
Yeah.
unfun watching every like suit up act or everything like that, where there's just a bunch of pixels and then he's in a suit.
It's like this suit can be anything I want it to be. It can solve every suit situation.
Back to plain clothes now. Back
Yep.
to like a
Yeah.
It takes away any weight of the suit, I feel like. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is
very
why they take it
frustrating.
away from him in every movie. Like in this movie, he has to leave it at home. Like
Yeah.
in the first movie, he gets it taken away from him, and we'll get to the third movie, but he loses it there too. So
Yep.
Spoilers, yeah. I
You go, Conan.
I think this is a good example of how marveling the film really ruins it. Like this film feels very much like two parts, right? It's got the high school, like the classic high school vacation, which is kind of like a genre in and of itself, and it's kind of funny. You got a lot of fish out of water scenes. You got a lot of fun stuff like the Ned Betty relationship and kind of this constant trying to get with MJ and that. But then at the same time, you've got this big battle, and obviously the battle is something else. But you bring in Nick Fury, and so you've got that cornerstone of Marvel there, and he's just doing the Marvel thing, and they've got this bigger story that's kind of affecting the other side, but it feels very broken up to me. It feels very much like I kind of want to see them like just their hijinks around Amsterdam and going to the theater and all sneaking out. Like that's kind of fun. But then it's like, oh, now we have to watch this 20-minute CGI battle.
yeah,
I'm like, God, I can't wait for this to end.
one of my first notes is like the school drama is way more interesting than anything that's happening in the action scenes.
Yeah.
Particularly for the first half, like is where it's the most egregious, I think.
And you're just dealing with water monster, lava
Yeah.
monster, all that. But yeah, like I do love on this trip the kill strike with Edith
That's
that he
fun.
does on Brad.
Yeah.
It's just like, and I love the little touch of there's that moment of Flash, because I love that Flash is such a Spider-Man fan though. Like he's full on defending Spider. Mysterio's not as cool as Spider-Man.
Yes.
What's up,
I just
Peters
think
Parker? What's up, Dickwad, or whatever he calls him?
Yeah.
he's just a great guy.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
But like when Peter has them glasses on, he's trying to stop the drone so I can flash. Like, new glasses, I like them. Let me put them on. Like he's like, no, I'm actually giving you a compliment. Like just
I was like,
knocks him out.
Yeah, that is fun. I think there's a lot of great moments in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But none of them are around Mysterio, in my opinion.
No, I agree. Like he's such a weird villain. Jake Gyllenhaal is so wasted
Yes.
because he's actually kind of fun when he is Mysterio. Like he's got a bit more sarcasm to him, and then as soon as they do the reveal, and he's just
Quentin Beck.
He's the weenie little Quentin Beck. Like I was wrong. He's a caricature of a caricature. He's so flat and crappy. And he's just, he's like, oh no, that's not right. We need more here. He stole my idea. I'm like, this is a Scooby-Doo villain. This is the lamest crap. I'm like,
there's that scene in the middle where it's like he gets the glasses and then they have this big party, and it's just like it's just an info dump on who I am, what my motivation is. Like it's just totally telling you the whole plot. It doesn't let you experience it or anything like that. It's egregious. It's really bad.
He's talking to these people. He's like, this is what happens to you. I'm like, everyone knows that.
Everybody was there the whole time.
And it shows the flashback too and zooms in on his face. Like it's dramatic for fun reasons though, but
it's so crap. It's so
no,
bad.
like I don't like the scene. I'm not saying it's a strong scene. I feel like obviously with what they did with Vulture in the first one, I feel like this is their take on Mysterio being like, okay, this person who works with illusions, what can we do? Or like CGI and all this. I like that take. I think that's interesting to use. Obviously, that's very advanced CGI and all this projectors.
It's a big leap of like it just doesn't make much sense, right? Like they're trying to sort of make things realistic, but it's still like super over the top. There's no way they're causing that much destruction with these drones. Like it's just really, I don't know.
Yeah.
It
It's really hard to believe that that's all
There's
halluc
certain scenes where it's like,
CGI.
I don't get how this is, like, happening, like, in real life. Like,
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
the confrontation with him and Mysterio, Peter Parker and Mysterio, like, when he goes to confront him in Berlin, and there's a whole scene where that ends with him getting hit by the train,
yeah,
and, like,
Yeah.
he's falling. It's like a Doctor Strange trip. Like, he's,
it
like,
is.
falling
Yeah,
through all this stuff and
Yeah.
all that. It's like, how is Peter seeing all this and, like, falling on, like, it's just it's it's weird. I feel like that they could have played more into, like, a scarecrow thing with
yeah.
hallucinogens or something,
That would,
But
but
yeah.
but then how do you do that for like the city of London? It's a whole thing
Yeah.
too. But I
you
kind of
get a
like that.
microwave to
Yeah.
vaporize it.
But the water, duh.
I
Yeah,
kind of enjoy that hallucination scene. Like it's fun, but you're
it's
right. Like it
good.
makes no sense in the real world. It
Yeah.
totally seems more like something Doctor Strange would do. Um,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like it's too big a leap of faith to say this is all drones and holograms.
Yeah. It feels like that weird take of like drones are a relevant thing, right? Like we don't know what they're going to do in the future. They could be a big
Yeah,
deal. So let's do drones as the best. It's like it's like nanotechnology. Like we know this is a thing and it could be really cool one day. So let's just do nano stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. And I don't know, this film's like, because this is the final part of phase 3, right? And it definitely feels like it's like the epilogue of the whole story. Endgame's happened, then this happens.
yeah,
And it's kind of interesting as again, like a palate cleanser. It's like, let's have a bit more lightheartedness. Here's another potential threat, I guess, but it's kind of this is the future of threats. I kind of like what they're trying to do. And like you say, there's some interesting ideas there for sure of like how to Mysterio as a realistic villain. But it's I think they really missed the mark. Well, on the rewatch, I just like was super bored in this film.
yeah. And Jake Gyllenhaal is so wasted. Like he's so good, like you say, and he's actually pretty
Yeah,
good as Mysterio. But the whole Quentin Beck thing is so dull.
yeah, hate it.
That's the thing. It was I remember being like, "Oh god, this is cool," like, with Mysterio, when he's talking about, like, "I'm Mysterio from a different Earth," like, the multiverse, and it's like, like, I find that kinda more interesting than the
You wish it was
CGI
real.
thing, and
Yeah,
kind of, but, like, also, like, "Oh, no, he actually was a villain on that planet," and obviously
Yeah,
we get into the multiverse eventually, and
yeah.
yeah,
this is like a
that's
weird tease where it's like, the multiverse is real, but it's actually not, but then we find out later it
yeah,
actually is.
but it, yeah,
Um, One thing I find weird in this film, because it's definitely not as strong as, Homecoming, um, like, Nick Fury's weird, and it makes sense with the post-credit scene, like, it makes a lot more sense that, it doesn't feel like Nick Fury, though,
No.
in the film, like, he feels like he's playing a different character, like, it doesn't seem like the Nick Fury that we've seen in other films, um, it's just I don't know, it's kinda like a wasted thing just to have him there, I feel like, but
but I mean, man, they Marvelified it, and they're like, add Nick Fury because he's in Marvel. It's like, why? You don't need that.
Sorry, has there been a payoff for him being in space yet? Do we know what he's doing?
no, that'll
No.
be the next Captain Marvel film,
Yeah,
I
okay.
imagine.
I thought so.
Because and that's the thing, that's just such a weird, like, a post credit with the crew reveal, and then it's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
he's actually up on a beach. Oh, wait, no, he's on a space station, walking around in a short sleeve shirt." Like, it's just a weird post credit scene that I remember even watching that, like, the day it came out and just being like, that was a
What?
weird scene."
And then they
It is
like
weird.
totally take it back in No Way Home, where they're like, "Oh, he's been off planet." Like everybody knows he's off planet. So what was the point of having the Kree stand in for him anyway? It doesn't.
Yeah, good
Yeah,
question.
doesn't make
It
any
doesn't really
sense.
make any sense.
Um,
I kind
I
of
feel
enjoy
like
the Spider-Man suiting up scene where he's like creating his new suit and the ACDC starts playing and
Led Zeppelin.
oh, is it Led Zeppelin? Sorry, and
No, I think no, it is
I know it is.
AC/DC.
I know it is.
Oh, it's okay.
And happy's having a good time. He's enjoying it. He's reminiscing.
Like, yeah, because he sees Tony in him.
Yeah, I think it's a
I
nice
l
scene.
I like the little tease, or not tease, but, like, just the little references to him and May dating, like, and
Yeah,
Peter's like,
that's a lot of
What's
fun.
going
Yeah,
on?" And "Why is he at your workplace? Like, what's he doing?"
yeah,
Um, but that scene's really emotional, like, when Spider-Man's been through that thing, he wakes up in the jail cell, with the soccer fans or whatever.
That's pretty funny too, where they like lock themselves back in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the guard's having a baby. He's like, oh yeah, that's really exciting.
Everybody's so
They're
friendly
super
here.
happy.
And I love that the police guy's on the phone to he's like, yeah, night monkey, yeah. He's got the mask on. He's just on the phone, like, yep, got the night monkey. But like, I really like that scene, like where Happy picks him up, and like Peter Parker's emotional and like talking about how am I supposed to live up? I did this thing. I gave him the glasses, and
Yeah.
he's doing all this. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely not as strong as the first film.
How does anybody else know about the glasses too? Like, it's just they bring it out of nowhere, and suddenly it's this thing that everybody wants to get their hands on. Like, it's I don't know. I think it's a bit of a it's the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. It's not
Yeah.
doesn't
The
make any
MacGuffin,
sense.
yeah.
It's just a MacGuffin that
I
give people something to fight over.
like spoilers. We see it as taken as evidence in the third one. I don't think we'll ever hear of those glasses again.
No, yeah, you did
No.
see them for a second, and that's it.
Like, I don't think they're needed. I think it was, I don't know. I was expecting Tony to talk to him when I first watched this film, and like, oh, this is a gift from him, and he puts it on, and it's like all like I thought there was going to be like a message from
Hmm.
Tony Stark or whatever, but yeah, it's cool and it's funny for like putting a drone strike on
Yep.
Brad, but like it's too much power for Spider-Man.
I mean, the drone strike on Brad is basically the kill mode or whatever from the first Spider-Man. Like, it's the same.
Still,
Same gag.
Yeah.
yeah. But I really do like that scene where Brad gets the photo of him in his undies with the girl in the thing, and shows like, I'm going to take a photo because this is going to ruin your chances with MJ because I want to be with MJ.
Mm.
And then the whole thing on the bus with trying to interfere with that.
Yeah. I like it. They've got good chemistry. I like the MJ and him. I like how she's very, very confident in like everything, but then with him, she's kind of awkward again. And you
Yeah.
see that
Yeah.
nice sort of like she is actually, like she's shy around him because she likes him and he's similar. He's always losing his words. I really do like their interactions, and like you can see a difference of when she's in, when she's guarded and just being sassy, she's one, but when she's being vulnerable, she is a lot more sort of timid and like afraid. And it's really cute their dynamic.
They have good chemistry. They should date in
Mm.
real life, I reckon.
I think she stands out a lot more in this movie than the first one. Like, I remember when the first one was announced, like, oh, it's Zendaya, she's going to be MJ, and I'm like, who's that? Why do I care?
Yeah.
She didn't do anything for me, but in this, like in number 2, I think she does shine a bit. Her character comes out, and she's fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Last note, I just with the ending, I don't know why, I just love the little insights we get into Flash that like his parents don't care about him.
Yeah.
Like, I love when
Couldn't
he
even
gets there
come
and his
pick me up.
butler's there, and he's like, "Oh, could mother not make it?" Everyone's being greeted by their loved ones after this almost death experience, and he's like, "Oh, okay." It's great. Flash is great, Conan.
He's not though. He's not.
Of course, the other ending is the reveal of J. Jonah Jameson revealing
Yeah.
So awesome. J.K.
Spider-Man's
Simmons.
identity. J.K. Simmons. I mean, when that happened, I was just like, hell yes, because he's the only one who can play that character. It's
Yeah.
done really
Sure.
well, and it's a really good cliffhanger for like, what the hell are they going to do next?
Yeah.
I forgot that that's a post-credit scene.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I
'Cause
don't
it's
like
the first post-credit scene, and it's like kind of a big thing, and
That
that's
real-
how the third one starts.
that really bothers me that that's a credit scene. I'm like, this is a pivotal piece of information. I get that with a Marvel film, you expect the credit scenes. That's part of it.
Not everybody
But
does.
it's like,
Lots of
not
people
everybody
get up and leave
apparently-
as soon as the credits
that's
start.
the thing. That's the thing. There are still people who don't. And like the rules of film are where the credits are done, the film's over. You can't leave these huge moments until that. And so it frustrated me that I'm like, that's not the actual end. I'm like, guys. Anyway.
I wonder how many people walked into No Way Home and were like, wait a minute, what?
Like, imagine
His
that.
identity's revealed? What?
Imagine you walk in, it's like, when did this happen? I watch
Yeah.
movies according to the rules, and this never
Yeah.
happened.
All right.
Sure there are some
Should we
people.
get into that movie now?
Yeah,
We're ready for it? All right. With
finally,
Spider-Man's...
some good Spider-Man.
With Spider-Man's identity now revealed, our friendly neighborhood web-slinger is unmasked and no longer able to separate his normal life as Peter Parker from the high stakes of being a superhero. When Peter asks for help from Doctor Strange, the stakes become even more dangerous, forcing him to discover what it truly means to be Spider-Man. Hell
Oh,
of a
man.
movie.
This film.
Griner, I'm interested more in what you think. I knew Luke was going to love it from the first moment.
Sure.
What? Man, you
As-
don't know my thoughts.
I said this in the group chat as soon as I saw it. I was like, Luke is going to just gush over this film. And
Yeah.
The word was
I don't-
cream, but anyway.
yeah, that's I didn't
And
want
I'd
to say it
block
on here.
out for days because I was on a media blackout. But
So Griner, yeah, I'm curious what you
So
thought.
I only saw it today, but I really enjoyed it. Where do you even start with this movie? Like, this movie has so much packed into it, and somehow they make it all work. Like, if you compare this to Spider-Man 3, which had a problem with having too many villains, and this movie has more villains, also has more heroes, and somehow pulls it all together, it gives us, like, these really nice moments that, like, it really gives us closure on Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. This movie somehow
so good.
gives us
it's the
closure
third
on
movie he
that.
deserved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It gives us some closure for Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man as well. Like, that you get these really nice moments of him and Doc Ock. You get Andrew Garfield rescuing MJ.
Oh, man.
They're emotional moments. Somehow they hit really hard, and it's just like I shouldn't care this much about a superhero, but I think I really do. And like, I was gutted when they kill MJ off. I mean, not MJ, when they kill May off
I was
halfway
like,
through.
what?
I saw a different film, you guys.
That's a
Sorry.
post-credit scene. It's a
When,
post-credit scene.
Oh,
MJ
what?
dies.
When Aunt May dies, that's
Yep.
absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yep.
And just like fitting in all the memes, and like I do feel like
So good.
Spider-Verse did that also, and did it really, really well too. So they're treading some ground that I think has been tread before, but it's really good. Willem Dafoe absolutely steals the show in
He's
this.
so good.
He is
man.
absolutely, like, I thought it was going to be I don't know the actor's name, Otto Octavius. Like, I thought he was going to be, the guy, the one that you
Alfred
cared
Molina.
about. Yeah, the one you cared about the most, and he's really good in this too. But Willem Dafoe, I think, carries this movie in a lot of ways, particularly from a villain point of view. He's so good. Like, just the change between, like, it genuinely looks like he's got like a
He's a
mental
homeless
disorder.
dude
Like,
who's-
yeah.
And like he does, and it's like
Yeah.
even subtle things, just him in the background, like pinching the donuts and putting them in his
Yeah.
in his
Donut.
pockets, like, and he's like looking over, putting them in there, and he seems like this frail, like old
Yeah.
nutbag man. And then once the Goblin kicks in, he's
Yeah.
so evil, man. Just like his face and like his voice, and it's just he's so perfect for that character. And it's so good to see him like interact with Siri's talking. It's so good to see him like interact with Tom Holland and everything like that, you
Yeah.
know, and see Goblin come back. And of course, he's something of a scientist himself, I like just
Yeah.
oh man, so many awesome references.
Yeah, even though the tiny ones, like the scene where they're pointing at each other,
Yeah.
and so it's not exactly recreating it, but it's nodding
Yeah.
enough to be like,
Yeah.
that's good. I don't need you to hit me over the head with it. Just a bit of fan service.
Van
that's-
just shows up for no reason. All three of them point to each other, like just to
Yeah.
perfectly.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it did that because MCU is often not subtle, but they
Yeah.
did it really well. And they respected the fandom enough to know people will appreciate this.
That's the other thing. Like, they really know what the fandom likes about Spider-Man, but also these movies. Like, they weren't afraid to have Andrew Garfield stand there and say, "I'm lame. I'm not as good as you guys." Like,
Yeah.
and because his trilogy is not considered as good as the other two, like, it's not held as highly.
Yeah.
And then the others like building him up, saying, "No, you're amazing," because he was the amazing
The
Spider-Man.
amazing
Like,
Spider-Man. But I also like that Tobey Maguire's like, dude, you can't be saying that because like Andrew Garfield's like a cool dude, and he like I know that was the thing. Like when he's Peter Parker, he's got a skateboarder and he's like looks like a cool dude, while Tobey Maguire's a total dork. He's
Yeah.
like, dude, you're awesome. Like you're amazing. Like what are you talking about? You shouldn't be talking about yourself like that. You're amazing. Trust me. Like that's the thing. I feel like this film retroactively like makes the other two like films better, if you know what I mean. Like obviously Spider-Man 3 is not great and everything, but especially Andrew Garfield's one, I feel like this film we needed that. Like I love seeing where his like state of mind was at after the death of Gwen Stacy, like hearing him say like I stopped pulling my punches after a while. Like it's like he's such a good actor. And like as he's like, he's the bitter and old Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire has MJ, but he's like, no, I don't have time for the Peter Parker stuff. Like he's abandoned all that. He's just living the Spider-Man life, like, and yeah, has lost himself a bit. It's great.
I think like he's that youth pastor. Like he's in this interesting mental role of like he has MJ, but there's clearly issues here. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you can tell he's actually the cost of Spider-Man. He's working, he's doing the right thing by being Spider-Man, but it's
Yeah.
coming at a cost that he's like, and he's humble about it as well. He's like, yeah, like it's hard. My life's probably not great, but I've got the important things. I'm doing important work, and that's what I want from Tobey Maguire, right? That's what we've come
Yeah.
to expect.
He's got a bad back now. Like the scene where
Fantastic.
My
Andrew
back.
Garfield fixes it so good.
Yeah.
Like a good callback. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's many films that would have the guts to be like, this is the weakest trilogy. Like we know it, our fans know it. Let's address it. Like I think, I don't know. I wouldn't see a lot of other movies doing that. Being like this, these films didn't hit as hard as they should have.
Yeah, I agree. I was expecting there to be a lot more of just like not ignoring it and be like, oh, we're all cool, we're all pretty, and just sort of taking the characters back to where they were. But it was a really great choice to be like, no, fans are expecting something from this.
Yeah.
Let's
Yep.
address all the elephants in the room because this is and you're right, like a lot of ground has been trodden by Spider-Verse. And so we've seen sort of how fans love this interactions, how fans sort of
Yep.
are expecting, they want to see continuation and legacy and the broader fallout. And so to have all these characters come in and be like, well, here's the world that they're in now. Let's address the real world implications.
Yeah.
Like
It's so
Dude.
good. It's so smart.
the balls and like the expectations placed on this film
Mm.
heading into this to not like we all knew, but we didn't know. Like
Yeah.
we never they didn't show them in a single trailer. They didn't put them on a single poster. You know, I still had that doubt and like I had this fear, all these expectations going in, like all the three of them, and it literally could have been like that final scene, them showing up in their Spider-Man
Yeah.
suits, CGI fight, helping fight, like, hey, I'm from a different universe. But we literally get like 40, 50 minutes with them just shooting the shit, just they're talking to each other.
And
You're like,
it's so good.
man, the web comes out of your wrist.
I was like, I really
how
hope
does-
they address that, and they totally did. Like they
Oh,
totally
and
talked
so
about
good.
it. Yeah.
And Tom Holland just being like, does it come just out of your wrists or does it come out of other places too? Like, why wouldn't a teenager ask that? Like, it's just
Yeah.
like everyone
Yeah.
wants to know this. And he's like, I love that they address that sort of stuff. It's just so good. The chemistry between those three actors is great. Like I could watch them interact. I really now feel spoiled and I'm like, I want more with Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. Like,
Yeah.
why can't I get another film with that? Why can't I get more Tobey Maguire? Like, I was hoping the post-credit scene would be just a little check-in on them going back to the universe and him being like to Kirsten Dunst, like, oh man, do I have a story to tell you? Like where I disappeared to. And she's like, you went and saw such his name again, Gwen, didn't you? Like,
Or Andrew Garfield actually meeting, Mary Jane in his universe, like,
he's MJ.
yeah. And like they even poke fun at their villains. He's like, "What happened to you? I fell into a vat of it. Like I fell into a bunch of electric eels. I fell into a hadron collider."
Yeah.
It's like-
Got to watch where you walk.
Yeah.
But even them just like talk like Tony was like, I fought an alien made of black goo, and he's like, yeah, I fought a purple alien in outer space, and Andrew Garfield's like, I fought a Russian dude in a rhino tank, like in a rhino machine. He's like, man, I wish I fought aliens. I want to fight an alien. Like it's
Yeah.
it's so meta. It's so great to just have these like man, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was 20 years ago. Like, we grew up watching that. And 20 years later, we're seeing him 20 years older, interacting with the new Spider-Man that we've been watching for the last like 6 years. And the Spider-Man we had for 2 films 12 years ago as well. Like it's a dream come true. I love it so
I was
much.
like kind of concerned they were going to de-age Toby and like make him the age he was when those movies finished. But I'm glad he's like the older, more grizzled Spider-Man. Again, this was done in Spider-Verse and it worked really well there. I mean, they're very different characters though. Like in this, he's very much like he's almost a father figure to the other two. Like he's giving advice. He's the veteran without being really jaded and over it and on his ass.
And it's kind of, I'm really glad they didn't go down path of like, there's one who's trying to like, there's no like Dark Knight Batman who's like, I just kill people now. Oh, sorry, no Dark Knight Spider-Man. Like they didn't lean into it too much. They're like, Garfield has his line about pulling his punches, and they both talk about, we could have gone this way and we had some dark years, but Andrew Garfield's still much more emotionally scarred, and you can sort of see he's a bit more like fun, whereas Toby is like a father. He's very quiet. He's very reserved. He's like really keen.
You young kids, like
he's encouraging them, supporting them, like he is paternal, and it's they know exactly what these characters should be and are, and they nail it.
Like, I feel like Tobey Maguire sometimes cops it negatively. Like, he's great and everything, but, as an actor or he's Spider-Man or whatever, him stopping Tom Holland from killing Goblin at the end and just that look in his face where he's just, like, staring at him,
Yeah.
like, you can just read what he's saying, and it's, like, so powerful. He's just looking at him, he's like, "You don't wanna do this,"
Yeah.
"Don't do this, like, think about what you're about to do."
Yeah.
It's so good, and the whole time I'm like, "Oh, please don't get stabbed. Please don't get stabbed." And then he gets stabbed, and I was like, "No, they're totally gonna kill
Yeah, I
Toby in
thought they
front of me.
were
I can't
too.
handle this." I'm so glad he's just like, "I've been stabbed before." And then Andrew Garfield's like, "You're in a lot of
Walks,
pain, aren't you?" He's like, "Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm in a lot of
just
pain."
walks it off.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to bring some negatives first before we bring it home. Should
No,
I raise the negatives
we
at
got
some
more
point? Or?
positives to go
There's
through.
lots
We
more
got more
positives,
positives.
yeah.
There are. Okay, all right. I will do that first.
Like,
then.
okay, first of all, just that scene when they first get introduced and Ned does the spell and like, I just want to see Peter Parker. And like he shows up straight away, I was like, oh my God, is this it? Is this when it's happening?
Yeah.
And then just like that whole interaction where they're throwing the bread at him. And he's like,
Yeah.
I have the tingle, but just not for bread. And then Ned's mother gets him to fix the cobwebs in the corner. He just like crawls over, swipes it away. He's like, there we go.
Actually, I want to ask, how did you guys go when you saw this? Like, where did each of you see it? And then what was your experience? What was the cinema like during?
So I saw this yesterday morning.
Yep.
So it was the second showing in my town. My son and I went to the opening showing on Friday night. Um, we got there 15 minutes before it was starting, and the line was down the block.
Jeez.
We all got
Crazy.
turned away because it was sold out, and I had to take my son, who was dressed as Spider-Man, at 7 o'clock at night
Oh.
away and explain that we will go see it tomorrow after I'd been talking it up all week with him, and he was a mess. It was
That's
not
so
it was
sad.
not it was not great. We went first thing we could the next day, got there an hour early. It was still pretty busy, and we were still in a bit of a line, which was crazy, and it was still pretty packed. For a morning session on a Saturday in our town is sort of
Yeah.
unheard of. And the crowd was like electric. Like, everyone was laughing at what they should have been laughing at. People were like, as soon as it popped up, like, and the Spider-Man's down the alley after Ned does the circle, like, people were like, oh, is that Toby? Like, you could just hear everyone being like, oh my God, Garfield. Like people were
Yeah.
like going nuts for it. And it was great. And then I saw it again today, the same time Griner did. And I feel like, it was a good crowd. Like, it wasn't dead or anything like that. It was pretty
But there was,
lively.
I will say this morning, there was people who were definitely not interested and were on their phones, and there was kids and stuff, which is not my favorite way to experience a movie. I think cinema kinds of sucks. I don't know. I don't like other people. They annoy me. But
I feel personally attacked because I was sitting behind Griner with my kids. So
I
And
wasn't
you
going
were
to say
annoying.
it. I wasn't
I'm
going to
sure you
say
were
that.
annoying. Your son was putting
Wasn't Luke's
popcorn in
kids
Griner's hair.
in particular.
No.
Because this
Snapchat
is
kids on their phones.
one of those films, right? So I saw this on Thursday, like opening night, at like an 8 o'clock screening at a more art house cinema because the other ones were all packed out. Like the big ones were all pretty much sold out. And so the one we went to was still almost sold out. But I went with my wife the first night we didn't have our daughter. So it was so she was really like constantly checking, like, is she okay, to her sister who was babysitting. I was just in the zone, but it was regardless of what this film does in these, if my opinion sours of it, or gets better, I will always think of this, like, I can't separate this film from the experience because
Yep.
packed cinema, it was electric, man. Everyone was alive, everyone was excited. As soon as Matt Murdock turns up, people are cheering.
Oh,
We haven't
dude.
talked about
And-
that, but yeah.
Dude, there's so much.
So exciting, so cool. It's like, finally we got that confirmation. Everyone wants to see Charlie Cox.
Yep.
And then and then during those reveals, like, the crowd just lost their shit. Like, people are laughing, cheering, clapping. At the end,
Yep.
when the credits are rolling, people are applauding. And it's just one of those moments, like, there's no reason to applaud. No one's actually, the projectionist isn't like, thank you for that. I needed it.
Yeah.
But it was just that magical thing. This is why cinema should always be alive. There's this magical experience. Like, all of us strangers have shared this moment. We have bonded in a way that we'll never talk about, never express. But we've all participated in this cultural event, and it's awesome. And even my wife was like, she really enjoyed it, and she's like, I felt like I was part of the Marvel crowd for that night because, and like, it was really beautiful. Partially enraging, like, don't do that, don't go down that path. But she just loved being part of this broader community, and I think it's it is what Marvel does well, and this film does such a great job of balancing both. If you're not a Marvel fan, if you haven't seen the earlier stuff, you can come into it and still get what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think even if you haven't watched all these films, it's almost impossible to not know Tobey Maguire with Spider-Man, and almost
Yeah.
like I feel like everybody saw those films. So
Yeah.
they have some sort of meaning to almost everybody who would watch this movie. But even if you're also a massive MCU fan like you, Luke, and you come into this, you get a different experience out of it. You can
Yep.
appreciate more of the little things. And it does such a great job of being like, this is accessible for everybody. Whereas there are other Marvel films that don't do that, that are a lot more like, this is a Marvel film and a Marvel thing, and you've got to like Marvel to get anything from this. Whereas
Like-
this film is a joy in the experience, right? Watching it is just fun and satisfying and emotional.
Like, I've pretty much gone to like probably the last 15 MCU movies on opening night, first session, like in my town. Usually pretty back. Yeah, we have like there's ones like Eternals or stuff like that where there's not that many people, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of empty, and people aren't reacting because it's not these things, But then I can't separate those experiences. Like watching Endgame was like an experience I'll never forget. Like
Yeah.
there was not a seat empty in that cinema when we watched Endgame, and just for moments like Mjolnir like levitating and Cap catching it, and everyone screaming and reacting.
Yep.
Captain saying Avengers, and just like you can hear everyone like, and he says assemble, and the crowd go nuts, and it's like just the crowd reactions give me goosebumps, like
Yeah,
in the moments, as much as the movie, like the euphoric feeling I felt when like Captain America does that, and they all there in like a row and they all march. I'll never forget that experience for as long as I live. And like
Yeah.
I felt like it was connected with the other couple hundred people in that same room, and you can't separate
Exactly.
that experience, and it's
Yeah.
what cinema is.
Yeah, that's like people need to see this movie in the cinema, right? Like, I'm sure this
Yeah.
film would be fun, but I think if I saw this on like Blu-ray a year later, I wouldn't be as invested. I'd be like, it's still good, but I would be like, yeah, it was nice. Whereas just seeing it in the cinema and sharing that was awesome.
Which is why it blew me away growing up. You Googled if Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were in this.
I mean,
that
we knew it was
boggles my
coming.
mind.
We knew it was coming.
But you didn't know. No.
Yes, you did.
I'm not like Luke. You are very sensitive to spoilers. You black yourself out from the internet the day movies come out, so you don't get spoiled. You weren't even in our group chat for 3 days because you didn't want us to accidentally say we
I didn't even tell you, so I wasn't going to be in the
movie.
chat. I was just
I had to call your wife and make sure you were okay.
Yeah, and she was like, "I don't know. I haven't seen him in 3 days.
He's
hiding under the house." Like, shush.
I am not that sensitive to spoilers. I think if a movie can't stand up on its own, like if a spoiler ruins a movie totally, it's a bad movie anyway. Sure, it does change your experience of it. I totally get that, but I'm just not that sensitive to them. I was 99% sure anyway. I just wanted to confirm it for myself. Like people have been analyzing screenshots of these trailers for months to figure this out.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's that bad. Like if they
you don't think your experience would have been different if you hadn't known that going in today, though, and then you're like, "Oh my god, he is there!" Like
the tiniest difference. The tiniest difference. Not as much joy as I got from knowing, oh yeah, they're in it. I'm so keen to see this movie now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. See, because I still we'd speculated. Obviously, there was that screenshot of Lizard getting punched by an invisible person,
and when that scene happened, I'm like, there it is.
But even watching the first half of this movie, once Doc Ock turned good again, I was like, the other Spider-Man aren't here yet. I was like, is that going to be Doc Ock knocking out Lizard in that final scene? And I was like, God damn it. I was worried about this being the thing. And then as soon as that scene and there's a Spider-Man down the alleyway, I was just like, oh, okay, here we go. And it totally lived up to my expectations and surpassed my expectations. I didn't know how that could have happened, but it really did. Like the final battle is great. Them all interacting, like you touched on earlier, Grana. Seeing Tobey Maguire, like old man Tobey Maguire, interacting with Alfred Molina, like the real Doc Ock, not, like before he turned evil, and him just being like, "It's good to see you," like what was he calling him, like good boy or something like that. Like he says something like, and it's like this really touching moment of them two, like, and especially we just watched the Maguire films again, and it's like, Spider-Man 2 is arguably like a great Spider-Man film.
Still the best.
So it's so good. Even I'm glad I went back and watched the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies this week.
I kind of
before
wanted
this.
to after watching this. I'm like, I kind of wish I
Yeah.
remembered them a bit better.
I legit watched him in the last couple of days because and I was like, oh, I should, just in case he shows up. I was like, I need to like get back in familiar with his Peter Parker. And watching him, I was like, they're definitely like the weaker of all the new Spider-Man films. Like, they're not great Spider-Man films. Lizard's not a great villain. Electro's
No.
not a great villain.
Their,
But
their Green Goblin take sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Awful.
but his Spider-Man's great. Like,
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is great. Conan, we mentioned this in a private chat. Like, his like mannerisms of him, like the way he trash talks people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, he's really witty, and he does this whole thing. Like,
Yeah.
I love the scene when he this we're never going to be able to review an Andrew Garfield one, so I'll just quickly talk about the Andrew
No.
Garfield ones now. Like when the burglar pulls out the knife, and he's just like, "Oh my god, is that a knife?" And he like falls to his knees, like, "My one weakness, small knives." And then he's just like,
Yeah.
boom, 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 hitting him with webs, pretending to sneeze and shooting webs on his like crotch. Like, it's hilarious stuff. But
It's so, yeah, and it's just so much, like you said before, it's so great getting this because we finally sort of see him in his truest skin, and we're like, in a good film, we're able to see, oh, he is awesome. Anyone
Yeah.
who ever doubted him has those concerns relayed because, like, oh no, he's great. It's just those movies weren't good,
Yeah.
and
do,
it's a
does
shame.
Sony not bring him back now
I
for
will
their
be.
own one with Venom?
God, I'll be happy if we get a Spider-Verse live action as well, and we get the three of them in a film. Like, I'll be the happiest boy in town.
I did have
But
a
I'd be
thought,
super.
like they could just continue all three of those movies if all those actors wanted to continue doing it, obviously. But like, they have. It's just in the multiverse. Who cares?
Yeah,
Let's have
I
three
think they'll
different
do.
Spider-Man.
I would not be surprised, and I think Garfield would be the one to come back because you can tell that like, even when before Amazing Spider-Man came out in all these interviews, he was talking about how Spider-Man was like his favorite character. He was so excited to play him, and I think you can feel that in those films. Again, he's carrying them. And it's like and that's why this film works so well again because you can feel his emotion. You can feel that he is literally like
Such a good actor. He
he's
really.
he's not just trying to convince us that he's sad Gwen Stacy died. He's trying to convince us that he's sad he didn't get a better film, and I buy it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
Yeah.
Garfield, you got wronged here. We all
Yeah.
got wronged. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back and is like, I want to do this again because I love Spider-Man so much. So bring on the Amazing Spider-Man 3, hey.
Man, if Tom Holland does retire, just have Andrew Garfield jump into this universe again and be like, you know what? I'm just going to stay. I'm just going to chill here for a bit. I'll be the new
I'd,
Spider-Man. I'll join this Avengers band too.
I want to fight an
I'd be,
alien.
I'd be cool with
Yes.
it. Like, I want to. Oh, sorry, you go. Yeah.
I'll go again. Like, that's the thing. We talked about so much, and then you brought it up again. Like, Daredevil, man. Like,
Yeah.
that was such a cool reveal. And like, hours after I watched it, I was like, oh shit, Daredevil was in it. Like, I was hyped before the movie, like hoping Daredevil would be in it. People were analyzing leak shots and everything like that. But as soon as his little walking stick hits the thing in that chaotic first 10 minutes of that film,
Yeah.
it all settles down then, and just him catching the brick and being
I'm
like,
a good lawyer. Yeah.
I'm a
I'm
really good
very-
lawyer. It's great. And then like we don't see him again. You know, it's just
Yeah.
basically introducing him to the MCU films.
Yeah.
And
Which
it's great.
I would have liked a bit more, but I'm also just keen to see Charlie Cox's Daredevil in there because he's such a good Daredevil.
Yeah.
The shows are so good.
Yep.
I'm keen to see him get some more time.
So obviously, like Daredevil and Spider-Man's always been this thing, like working together. Like, you know, I remember that was my first introduction to Devil was like the Spider-Man PS1 games and like the Daredevil swinging around on these little lasso things and stuff like that. But something I want to touch on before we move away, because I really want to talk about, I love the direction that we're going from here with Tom Holland Spider-Man. I find it really fascinating. I saw this on a Reddit thread, and since then it's just like watching it a second time. I really love that, you know, with both Peter Parkers that we've had before, they've told the same origin story basically. With Tom Holland, we skipped his origin story. You know, like we didn't get that. He was Spider-Man already. Tony Stark picked him up like, hey, come join on this. First film, he's already Spider-Man, whatever. And for him to have this trilogy where he's fighting aliens from outer space, being Avengers, doing all this stuff, and for the finale of this trilogy to have his aunt die, to tell him that with great power comes great responsibility thing, for him to finish this film, you know what? there's no more Stark tech. The Stark tech's not working. It's whatever. I've sewed my own suit back to the traditional blue and red.
Yeah.
No one knows me, like MJ and all that. No one knows who I am. I'm in New York in this shitty little apartment with my landlord telling me to pay rent. I have a
Mm.
police scanner here doing this. This trilogy was Tom Holland's origin story, and now we're gonna get the Spider-Man that's like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in New York, like doing this stuff, and I'm so hyped for that. The idea that we can have Kingpin, like Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, who's such a classic Spider-Man villain, Kingpin,
Mm.
to have him there with Daredevil and Spider-Man in New York, and him MJ not knowing him and restructuring this whole thing. I'm so excited for the next Spider-Man and hopefully another trilogy that's now this. And I really love that idea that this whole trilogy was his origin story to become this Spider-Man.
Yeah. There's a review I saw that said a similar thing. It was talking about how this is his origin sort of, and now that he's come home essentially after these films, out of the Avengers shadow, out of the legacy of that, he's actually become true Spider-Man now. So I kind of agree. As much as I, again, don't care for the MCU, I do want to see a great, like, we got to see some more like Raimi Spider-Mans. Essentially, we're going to see Tom Holland in that actual in a Spider-Man story rather than an Avengers Spider-Man story,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
that's where it lies. And
Yep.
that's a good segue to what I wanted to mention. I think the reason why this film works so much better than the first two and where it hits the nail on the head is this film understands pathos. Now, I've talked about this before. It's a great concept. Basically, it's just the emotional investment. This film earns everything because it has emotion in it. The earlier two films, I don't think, do it very well. Their investments are, I want to be an Avengers. Oh, I can't be an Avenger. The second film is, I want to have a holiday and date a girl. I can't have a holiday and date a girl. Who cares? This film, though, has such incredible emotional weight, both with the other Spider-Men, but that ending, like, we haven't talked about the ending, but the ending is so powerful. And they finally,
Yep.
after, they say, after three films, they said, this is the core of Spider-Man. This is the emotional, like, crux that he lies on. This sacrifice he has to make of
Mm.
power and responsibility. He has to actually sacrifice something now, because we haven't seen him sacrifice anything. We've had two films and he's done no sacrifice, but now he's finally like, I have to give up everything I thought I had.
Everything.
Exactly, my entire
Everything.
life, because I'm a hero. And I'm like, that
And
hits, like, that
dude,
hit me. And I'm like, finally, John Watts, you finally freaking understand something.
and for Toby and Andrew to be like, it's what we do.
Exactly.
They're like, we know, man. We know. Like, it's
It's
what we do.
like, I get shivers going, like, that's it. You guys understood. You've got, they fulfill their emotional arc. And I'm like, these guys, we've shared time with them and we see their emotion. We see Garfield's emotional journey get satisfied. We see Toby just in this beautiful emotional journey. We finally get Tom Holland having this. I'm like, that's, you guys have done it. You figured out Spider-Man finally. And I
Yeah.
really hope going forward, they keep that in mind, because that's what makes Spider-Man relevant. And we talked about this with the Raimi trilogy, that constant sense of like Peter having to struggle and his crappy life and making that compromise.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think Tom Holland, when he does that, he can do it really well. Like that again, that last scene, like, you see in him this, like, this bittersweet moment where he finally sort of, he smiles and you can tell he almost wants to cry, but he's
Yep.
like, I'm so happy to see my friends are okay and they're getting into
Yeah.
Yeah.
MIT. And I'm like,
But
that's powerful, man.
And that's the thing, because they have such good chemistry, and like those two films are those three people, like him and his friends.
Mm.
You know, it's never just been him on his own. Like he's had his friends.
No,
His
Yeah.
friend knew he was Spider Man from like 20 minutes into that film,
yeah,
you know, and has like helped him and been all this. And now he's on his own. And everyone who knows him, even Happy, who in Far From Home was like his emotional thing to go back on the jet and be like, oh, you're real. Thank God. Like, you know, you're here. He doesn't know who he is. And it's
yeah,
just like he's really alone. He's said in this thing, he's not a kid anymore. Like that's what I really feel like that final thing with him talking with MJ. He's a more mature Peter Parker. He's not this little kid in high school.
Yeah.
yeah,
He's off to the city by himself, and it's just, man, like Aunt May's death is so powerful in the film.
mm,
It's really sad, and just that shot, like even you have J. Jonah Jameson just ripping Spider-Man apart after Aunt May's just died, and he's there in the rain, right in front of the ad, like the billboard playing it, and it's a beautiful shot. Tom Holland looks really like, you know, emotional and everything. It's just, yeah, like I said this to Griner earlier. Like yesterday when I watched this in the cinema, there were a few girls in the row behind me who were like inconsolably sobbing, like as in couldn't breathe, like that like bawling their eyes out as the credits were rolling, to the point that
gosh.
people a few rows down were looking back, pointing at them and like laughing, like kids were laughing because they were like, my god, those people are crying, like these young kids are just pointing them like, but they were in, like they couldn't control themselves, they were literally
Yeah.
just moping like crazy, as if like they just got a, maybe they got a text saying it's the someone had died, but
Yeah.
like they were just
Unrelated.
inconsolable, you know. And it was like, this has an impact on people. It goes back to the whole
Yeah.
community thing that you were
Yeah.
saying with the MCU, but this relationship, like, it was after the credit. It was the final scene of Tom Holland and MJ and like Ned in that cafe. That's what hit those people. They weren't
Yeah,
crying
yeah.
in like the other scenes. It was that scene that hit those people, and those relationships mean something.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's why when we look back on it, the moments that stand out in this film are just those personal moments. It's the finale, it's the conversations that the characters have. It's them shooting the shit when they're like, do you have an MJ? Do you have an MJ? Like, this is
Yeah.
that sense of like that human cost. I'm like, this is why we care about this. And I think it's the great choice of getting the way the film's structured, right, is you have all the villains turn up, and then he captures all the villains in the first hour almost.
Yeah.
And that's like, oh, that conflict's actually almost done. And then you get Spider-Man come in, and then you have the one final battle. And like that's really good, because they don't waste too much time showing him hunt down every villain and just being like spectacle after spectacle. They wrap that up quite quickly and go, now let's emotionally pay off
And
8 films. So it's like, good choice.
yeah. And yeah, Lizard doesn't do too much, but you know what? Lizard's not that special. So like, we don't need to focus on him.
Yeah.
He
Sometimes
has a
I
few
felt like
funny lines.
I felt like they were a bit frustrated they didn't have better villains to choose from the Amazing Spider-Man, because it's like, Shocker's fine. He's really good in this compared to what he is in the Amazing Spider-Man. Like,
Oh,
his glow up
such
is
a
pretty amazing, but
such a better Electro than the one
yeah.
from Amazing Spider-Man 2.
But like,
Yeah.
there's no way they choose the Hobgoblin or the whatever it is, the Green Goblin out of that movie over Willem Dafoe. Like, they just can't. Maybe
Or
they choose the
Rhino.
Rhino. I don't know.
That showed up for 5 minutes
yeah,
at the start of the film.
he was a comedic piece anyway.
But even then, it's a wise choice, right? Because they intentionally don't try to flesh out all 5 villains. They're like,
That's
no,
right.
we only really need 2 or 3. And
Even
that's where it lies.
like, I had a moment where I was like, did they get Thomas Hayden Church back for this? I was like, it
I
sounds
don't
like him. And I was
I
like,
don't
but
think they
he's
did.
CGI. Yeah, because he goes back to human at the
Yeah, they
end.
show him as human at the end.
But is that just a CG face though? Because they could have easily just CG'd him.
No,
I'm pretty sure
it was definitely him.
Yeah?
Like, yeah, and he's credited and everything like that.
I mean, I reckon they probably like just asked him to send us some Zoom footage for 20 minutes.
It was probably, like
It
they only
would've,
needed to film that final shot with him. They kept him as
'cause you
Sand
can
the whole
you can
time.
tell exactly. You can tell he's only there for 1 day of filming or something, because
Yeah.
he's Sand the whole time. It's
But that's also, it kind of makes sense. Like, well, if he's just walking around human, it's like, well, now you're healed. Now you're human again.
Hmm.
Like, to just have him as Sand all the time, he's sitting on the couch and he's like, oh, sorry, brushing all his sand off the couch. Like, it's more impact when he's back to his human form, even though he could do that whenever he wanted to, technically, in
Yeah.
the old ones. But,
Yeah.
like, it's, like, they didn't need to focus on them too much. Like, Jamie Foxx is great as Electro in this. Like, he's like standout. A lot of his lines are funny.
Yeah.
Doc Ock's awesome. I love the whole intro with him. But yeah, like we touched on earlier, William Dafoe, still in the show. Did not expect him to be the main villain, but of course he would be, because he's so freaking good
Yeah.
as this evil villain. Yeah, such a good scene.
Yeah.
Was there too much Doctor Strange in this movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Really? He's
Yeah.
gone for most of the movie.
But the
He's
first
in a
half,
fair
he's in a
bit.
lot.
Yeah. He's in heaps of that. There's that whole big middle section where they're doing the interdimensional battle,
Yeah.
and Peter uses geometry
He
to solve.
uses math. That's hilarious. It's hilarious. He figures out the mirrors.
There's only one thing more powerful than magic: math. It's stupid. I like some of it, but I think there was too much of it for me. Like, give me another 10 minutes of spider banter later on, and cut that out.
I had the same thought. I don't care about their relationship and him and Doctor Strange talking for a long time.
But that's also because, like, Griner, you don't like Benedict Cumberbatch. Conan, you don't like Doctor Strange or the MCU that much. Like, I love those moments. And I feel like him at the end being like, the people who love you, and he hesitated, like, we won't remember you. Like, I really like the relationship with him and they fought together against Thanos, and I think it's
No, like
it's
I'm
touching.
I'm fine with him having moments. I do think, like
Yeah.
Ryan said, there's a lot of him, and a lot of it is like a Doctor Strange and him story. And I don't think because he's kind of filling in for the Iron Man role here, where he's again got a
Yeah.
wiser father figure, and I don't think you need that.
I,
I would
I
have preferred it just a sprinkled in.
felt like he was just getting set up for his movie. There's
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and there's that scene where he knocks him out of his body, and then his body's still like dodging.
Yeah.
He's like, "You shouldn't be able to do this." They never
It
explain
makes
it. Like it's
That's the
probably his
Spidey sense.
spider
That's
tingle. I
the
get
it
it.
is.
I
It's
get
the
it.
Spidey sense.
Nah,
That's
nah,
great. That
nah,
scene's awesome.
nah. I
And
think
It's
that's a really
hilarious that no one else can do it, but the
unnecessary.
Spider Sense, it's like Ultra Instinct, man. He's just react. It's like that's what the Spider Sense is like.
it's pointless though. That scene doesn't do anything. We know he has spider sense. It's
It's a
pointless.
fun scene.
I did. I
Can I
did.
talk?
Scene.
I did enjoy them playing basically Portal, where they just like
Yeah,
he's like flipping through the portals constantly. I
It's
just
a
all I could
good
think of was
fight scene
Portal.
though. I like how
There's some fun
they
moments in
use
it,
the
certainly. Like
portals.
there should be a fight scene between them. I just
Yep.
think there was more Doctor Strange than I wanted.
So this is where I have to bring the mood down a little bit.
And
The
that's all for this week. That's
the narrative and the general story of this film is garbage. It's so the story makes no sense. The fact that Doctor Strange is like, I'm going to start a world-ripping spell, but then just you throw a name out to me. Oh, I've screwed it up now.
6 names, man.
This wizard who apparently just like walks in, starts doing a spell, doesn't ask for any parameters, doesn't ask for any like, okay, here's what's going to happen. He just starts casting. He's like, don't disturb me though, because it'll destroy everything. It's really silly.
It's a convenient thing to bring everybody in.
Yes,
Yeah,
and this is what I mean.
it's like even stupid because he's like, "Oh no, I can't do that. I don't have the time crystal anymore. Like I'm not that powerful. Oh wait, I do have a spell that can literally change the whole world. Hold on." Like it's
Yeah.
just I don't know.
And then
Magic ruins movies. I'm sorry.
I'm fully with you. And the film is saved because again, they just hit everything else perfectly. Like the story is an emotional one and it works on all those levels. But I'm like, if they didn't do that, or just looking at it as purely as a story, I'm like, the narrative is so bad. It's so stupid. But it's just saved by like something happens, and then we finally get some Spider-Man, and we get the emotional payoff that I've been waiting for all this time. But I feel like that has to be accepted because I'm like, this film's great and I loved it, but I can't be like it's phenomenal because it's got some gaping holes.
It's the thing. There was a lot of people speculating when the first trailer came out because, like, if you're a Doctor Strange fan and you've watched all the films with him, like it seems,
Isn't there only one film with him?
yeah, but like,
Plus
no,
Avengers.
he's in a few Avengers films and stuff. But
Yeah.
it seems like, and he's in Thor Ragnarok for 5 minutes. It seems uncharacteristic of him, like to do this. Like it seems like he's very carefree. Like, yeah, we'll do that. Don't worry, let's go do this spell. Like it doesn't seem like the Doctor Strange that like we know or anything like that. But I think that it is a thing that plays into
They even
the
kind of
whole
make a
multiverse
joke
of
about
madness
it.
thing.
Like he's like, you didn't try ringing them to explain. Like they even make a joke about how stupid it is that he's casting this spell for him.
Yeah.
And maybe it is true they know, and it's just a means to get to the point where we have 3 Spider-Men and 5, 6 villains.
Worth it.
Yeah,
This
that's the thing. It is worth it
Yeah.
because we do get those good moments. But
Yeah.
as plot devices, they're MacGuffins. It's stupid.
Yeah. I fully feel like this film was very much brewed up in a tank, right? You had probably 100 different writers who were like, how do we get all the Spider-Men together? How do we recreate Spider-Verse? Because I do think this film is very inspired by the success of that, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
And so I think they're
100%.
like, they're like, how do we do that? And so that's why I think they really were like, and kudos, they focused their attention on the importance of that concept. And
Yeah.
I think they probably would have been like, well, we need to string this narrative together. And it's like, yeah, that works. And it's one of the rare times that it works. Like, I'm not coming out of it like, oh, story was silly. I'm like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
But but that's an issue there that must be addressed. Sorry.
I do I just want to touch on I love the scene, speaking of Spider-Man and everything, of Electro with Garfield Spider-Man. Where he's like, I just thought you'd be black. Like helping poor kids in Brooklyn. He's like, maybe there's a black Spider-Man out there somewhere. Like,
Pretty good,
yeah.
yeah. Good nod. Good
Good
nod.
We'll
bit.
get Miles
Good bit.
soon. We'll get Miles soon, definitely.
Speaking of plot holes, this is an inconsequential one, but the one of the after credit scenes or the mid credit scene is Venom. I haven't seen the Venom movies, but Spider-Man does not exist in the Venom universe as far as I'm aware.
No.
The whole conceit was we're bringing people in because they know who Peter Parker is.
Yeah,
Venom does
that's.
not know who Peter Parker is,
Oh wait, no.
or does he? I mean, the other Venom does, but not the Venom played by Tom Hardy.
All right. Spoilers for Venom.
Maybe the symbiote does.
Wait, I haven't seen Let There Be Carnage, but I've seen the post-credit scene. Doesn't that he? Does Peter Parker appear in that? Because I know it connects the universes.
Tom Holland's does. Once he transfers over, he's on the TV.
Oh, he's already
and Venom
transferred.
gets up and he looks out and he's like, that guy. Like, it's like the symbiote knows him because he takes over and he's like, that guy on the
So
TV.
maybe the
like, I
symbiote
know
knows
him.
him somehow. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And the
that would-
symbiote stayed there, which is a cool thing. I do love that literally Tom Hardy's Venom's just there, talks to the guy in the bar and then gets taken away. He's like, no, we just got here. We're back to the Sony first. No. Like, we're not in the MCU. But
Yeah.
I haven't watched any of the Venom films. So, like, yeah.
Yeah. I've seen the first one. Spider-Man is not in there at all. It's completely unconnected.
No. But, yeah, there's rumors that they'll get Tom Holland in like, that was the part of the compromise with the whole split between Sony and Marvel last 2 years ago or whatever, before they made up a new contract or whatever. But I don't know.
I would love to be there in that boardroom where you've got like 100 Sony execs and 100 Marvel execs, and they are just like combing through every word. Like, we cannot screw this up, hey, because it would just be, it would just be such a big deal for them to make every time.
But do you remember before, like, the second film came out, there was a report, like, I think it even came from them that they couldn't come to a deal for a second film.
Yeah.
Like, it's happened more than once, I think.
It was just after Away From Home because it had that ending and like revealing who he was, and then it was basically announced that the relationship's over. Tom Holland posted a whole thing like make your voices be heard with this, like you know,
I was reading,
but because people were like, this could be a perfect way to just out him then, to be like, well, people found out his identity and he disappeared, like he stopped being Spider-Man. But thank God it turned out the way it did, and we got this film. We got to see Tobey Maguire and Garfield back.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, I can't believe we got through it. All three movies. All right, is the ranking just pointless at this point? Like, it's 3, 1, 2, right? 3 being the best, 1 being second best, 2 being pretty average.
Easy. Yeah, I think that's correct.
Like 3 is basically an Avengers film. Like it doesn't feel like a Spider-Man. Like it feels like such.
It's
better
than an Avengers film.
No,
It's so
it
much
does.
better than an Avengers film.
I get that. Like, this is a really great film, but I mean, like, it's got high stakes and it feels really big for like, especially compared to the last two. You know.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just for fun, since we'll never be able to do it. So, how do you rank the trilogies?
Yeah, I was going to say
Andrew Garfield's one as well.
That's not even a question. But all films or just the 3 trilogies? Because that's not a question.
The 3
Actually,
trilogies.
maybe it is.
I mean,
Garfield's the bottom. Garfield's the bottom.
Garfield's the bottom. I don't think through his fault at all. It's. I mean, did you guys see, or like before the MCU Spider-Man, there was the notes that Kevin Feige had given to the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like, he had seen it. This is what he had thought about it. It's really interesting. Go look it up, because like, he hits the nail on the head. Like, this Kevin Feige obviously knows Marvel and he knows what he's talking about, but he says everything that is wrong with the Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's really fascinating. Like, the dude knows what he's talking about.
Like, it's crazy to see when we did the like the Raimi films, to see Kevin Feige on there as like an executive producer of the Raimi Spider-Man films. Like, he knows this character, he knows Marvel. Like, trust what he says. But no, I'm really interested in reading them notes.
Yeah, I think in my sorry. Yeah.
So just wait. So you have Holland's trilogy over Tobey's trilogy?
Me?
Yeah.
I do. And here's my reasoning. I think Spider-Man 3 is a bad movie, and I don't think any of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies are bad.
No.
I could say 2 is better than. I think I like No Way Home better, but that might be just because I saw it today. Like, 2 and No Way Home are phenomenal movies, but I think 3 is a bad movie, and none of the Tom Holland movies are as bad as that movie.
Do you want to go, or do you want me to?
No, so Spider-Man 2, since I feel like that's really the only competition here, where would you put that against any of the Tom Holland films?
Oh, it's better than all of them. it's so hard to pick between it and No Way Home, though.
Yeah. I think we need to let there be a cool down period because this always happens. You come out of one of these events and it's like best film
No
in
Way
the
Home
world.
is the best film ever made.
And I came out of it and I was like, I love that. That was awesome. But I'm like, I know things are going to change because you need to let it just chill for a little bit.
And I was surprised how good Spider-Man 2 was watching it, 15 years later. Like
Yeah.
how well it held up, how good of just a
Yeah.
story it is. Not a superhero story, a story.
Yeah. Yeah. Does this reveal of the 3 Spider-Men hold up on your 4th, 5th rewatch? Well, Luke, you've seen it 3 times, and yeah, the answer's yes, isn't it?
Yes, still holds up after all this time. So yeah.
So I think the way I look at it in my mind is I still think the Raimi trilogy is the best purely because it has just chill. I don't think Spider-Man 3 is a bad film. I think it's close to a bad film, but I think it's still got some good stuff to it. I just think it's got the first 2 are good, whereas with the Holland films, I'm like, No Way Home's the only one that stands out to me. Homecoming's fun. Far From Home, I don't think is good.
Homecoming's a great film, I feel like, but
It's fun, but I think in that grand scheme, I'm like, the Raimi trilogy is like 2 great films or 2 good films and 1 less than good. I don't know. I feel like that line's a bit more balanced, whereas in my mind, the Holland's a bit more jumpy. But
one last note, like speaking of the original ones, I do love the new Green Goblin costume. Like I love the hood and that they got rid of the mask.
I never liked
Defoe's
it.
face is evil enough, man. You
It's
don't
true,
need.
it's
I think you
true.
need his
Like-
face. I think you need his face. That was always my problem with his mask originally.
Like you can't have that mask looking at Tom Holland at the end and be like, "You killed her." Like it just
Yes.
is not the same. Just seeing his mouth through the black like grate.
Mesh,
through the
yeah.
front. That's not. Yeah.
I
His
agree.
face is that mask, just with skin, man. Like he can pull some pretty evil faces. It's great.
For sure.
Yep.
I
All right.
love that. I love this film. Just I'm sorry, I won't gush more. Just
You're Tom Cruise jumping on Oprah's couch right now.
yeah.
Repeating
just
yourself over and over again.
them just with the peace fingers, just as they fade away to each other as well. Oh, we'll see you boys down the line. I hope.
Would be nice. Would be nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
I think that does it for. It does. All right. No one butted in. The MCU, Tom Holland Spider-Man Trilogy. What are we doing next?
Well, our next episode will be our year in review.
That's right, a year in review. So we talk about our favorite movies and TV shows from 2021. A very strange year for movies, but I think this movie we spoke about tonight might have made it on it, but we recorded it before it came out. Just a little letting you know how the sausage is made.
Yep, totally would have been on my list.
Well, thank you for listening to The Good, the Bad, and the Worst. Our podcast is brought to you by our very Conan's book. Luke, I think you've got it there handy, don't you? A Taste of Iron, The Taste of Iron by C.V. Clarke. It's very good. Give it a read. It's on Amazon. There are paperbacks available if you contact us directly. You can find us.
If you love Spider-Man showing up in multiverses, this is the book for you.
Yep. Lots of Spider-Men.
Yep.
You can find us on at Good Bad Worst on social media. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. Let us know any feedback. We'd love to hear it. We also have a podcast called Bonus XP. It's about video games if you're interested in that. I think coming up we're going to be doing Game of the Year.
Yes. This week we'll be doing our Games of the Decade. Our Game of the Year for every year for the last decade and our Game of the Year for this year. It's going to be a fun podcast.
Well, thank you for listening to The Good, the Bad, and the Worst. We'll catch you next time.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I'm a really good lawyer.